If this is your first time here, grab the guest card in the seat back and take it to the lobby to receive a free gift. Coffee is also available in the cafe. You'll be with us for about an hour, and we want to invite you to join in with us, sing, laugh, and engage in this service. Feel free to take pictures, check in on social media, and share posts about Active Church. In fact, we'd love for you to take out your cell phone and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Active Churches. If you have little ones, check out Active Kids just across the way in our family building for a fun, safe environment for your kids to learn and grow. There's even a cry room for parents with newborns and infants to enjoy the live stream and the service as well. Thanks for joining in with us. We'll begin in just a few moments.
Why don't we stand up as we sing and worship together? Come on, let's put our hands together.
shout, 'cause we're gonna lift you higher, higher. Hearts burning bright like a fire, fire. Voices unite, make it louder, louder. We're never gonna stop singing. Ooh, we're never gonna stop. Higher, higher. Hearts burning bright like a fire, fire. Voices unite, make it louder, louder. We're never gonna stop singing.
Come on, we're gonna put our hands together.
We're never gonna stop singing.
So good to celebrate with you, church. Sing this out, every tribe.
Every tribe, every tongue, every heart will sing, every knee we will bow to the risen King. Lift him up, we're never gonna stop singing. Ooh, we're never gonna stop. Every tribe, every tongue, every heart will sing, every knee we will bow to the risen King. Lift him up, we're never gonna stop singing. Ooh, we're never gonna stop. Higher, higher, hearts burning bright like a fire, fire. Voices unite, make it louder, louder. We're never gonna stop singing. Ooh, we're never gonna stop. Higher, higher, hearts burning bright like a fire, fire. Voices unite, make it louder, louder. We're never gonna stop singing. Ooh, we're never gonna stop singing.
Come on, let's give God praise this morning.
Hey, good morning, Active Church. You guys can go ahead and have a seat. We're so excited that you decided to join us this Sunday. My name's Casey. I'm the family pastor here, and part of my job is that I get to work with some amazing high school students every Tuesday night, and we meet every Tuesday night at 6:30 called Active Youth, and we're so excited to be there. It's an awesome time as a community to get together, to have conversation, to have fun, memorable moments, and challenge one another to grow in our faith and grow in relationship. And if you have a student, or if you are a student, we would love to see you here on Tuesday nights at 6:30. I'm gonna be outside at the Guest Central location under the gazebo. If you want any information about Active Youth, I'd love to talk to you about it. It is an awesome opportunity to connect with me.
Awesome. And my name's Mike. We're so glad that you're here today. And if you are new around here, you picked a great Sunday to come and hang out with us, because we are serving barbecue food this morning. We have pulled pork sandwiches, we have watermelon, we have s'mores, we have grilled corn on the cob, enough for everybody to get fat and giggly this morning. And so we want to encourage you to grab some food this morning. We're signing up for connection groups this morning. We'll talk more about that as the service continues. But if you are new this morning, please fill out that card in the seat back. We'd love to meet you and get to know you. We have a free gift for you. Just take it to one of our Guest Central locations right after service, and one of our leaders there would love to meet you and talk with you and give you that free gift. And of course, stay for some pulled pork sandwiches.
Yes, it's gonna be delicious, so make sure you grab some. Right now, we want to greet one another and go into a greeting time, so go ahead and stand to your feet, reach across the room, try to meet someone you've never met before with a hug, a handshake, and a high five, and we'll be right back.
Hey, church, we're so excited about what God is doing in this city and in this place. You know, He's telling a better story in everyone's lives, and this moment is about that. It's about declaring what it is like to come back to God and to experience that new life. So let's declare this as a body, as one church, as one voice, with all that we've got. Here we go, let's sing this as one voice. Your love. Your love, it keeps pulling us up, pulling us back to where you are. Come on, every voice. And it's your love, your peace, your joy that fills our hearts. When you move, like rain, you fall right through us like a flood. Your voice, it speaks the sound like fire through our bones. Let's make this our prayer. Lead us back to you. Your grace invades our lives, it binds us to your heart. Your power refuels with strength to carry your heart. Sing it out. Lead us back to you. us out.
You didn't want heaven without us. So Jesus, you brought heaven down. My sin was great. Sin was great. Your love was greater. And what could separate us now? What a wonderful name it is. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a wonderful name it is. Nothing compares to this. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a wonderful name it is. The name of Jesus.
You know, church, this thing that we do here is about fighting each other's battles. It's about recognizing that even though we're surrounded by circumstances and the difficulty of life, being together, we're surrounded by God and surrounded with each other. Today we're going to sing these two lines, and we hope that it'll be a moment of deepening for your faith and deepening for hope. As we sing this together, this is how we fight our battles. This is how I fight my battles. Yes, Lord. This is how I fight my battles. And this is how I fight my battles. And this is how I fight my battles. In me love. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. And this is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. We do it together. This is how I fight my battles. As one voice, one church. How I fight my battles. This is how I fight my battles. We move together. Come on, sing it out. This is how I fight my battles. This is how I fight. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you, Jesus. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded. Sing it out. This is how I fight my battle. This is how I fight my. If you in worship, Lord. This is how I fight my battles. 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 This is how I fight. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. Let's sing it in faith. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you, Jesus. It may look like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. We're going to declare this truth as we fight together. Sing death.
Death could not hold you. The veil tore before you. You silenced the boast of sin and grave.
As you sing this truth,
Heaven's sorrow.
it becomes real.
The praise of
It becomes the reason why you can be confident in
For
God.
you are raised to life. You have no rival. You have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom. Yours is the glory. Yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. And you have no rival. And you have no equal. Now and forever, God, you reign. Yours is the kingdom, and yours is the glory. Yours is the name above all names. What a powerful name it is. What a powerful name.
Come on, if you believe it, let's sing this out.
In the name of Jesus Christ, my King. What a powerful name it is. Nothing can stand against. What a powerful name it is. The name of Jesus. What a powerful name it is. The name. Oh, what a powerful name it is.
Come on, let's declare the thanks to his name. We love you, church. So good to worship with you. Go ahead and grab a seat. Point your attention to the screen.
What's up, guys? Welcome to Active Church. I'm Joe Valenzuela, our Redlands location pastor.
And I'm Shauna, over our Prepare Leaders pillar, and we are so excited that you've joined us this morning. Hey, if this is your first time or first time in a long time, grab a welcome card, take it to any one of our Guest Central locations you'll find on campus, and we would love to give you a free gift because we believe you are worth knowing.
We would also love to give you a download card for our original worship project, This Is For Love, which is available anywhere online.
Feel free to check in on Facebook, share a picture or two on Instagram.
We've also got some more opportunities to share with you right now, so check it out.
Our Redlands preview services have been going on for a few weeks now, and we are getting so excited for the official launch this fall on Sunday, September 9th.
We need your help to spread the word to friends and neighbors in the Redlands area, and especially through social media.
Follow our Active Church Redlands page on Instagram and share posts on Facebook and Twitter. We've prepared so many amazing videos, promos, and invite options that are great tools and shareables.
This is how we are gonna reach Redlands area for Jesus. So do not hesitate to jump into the invite campaign so we can begin to launch big on September 9th.
Also, this fall season is just around the corner, and that means it's time for one of our favorite events here at Active, Trunk or Treat.
This event has been incredible the last few years, and it's all because of the amazing volunteers that make it happen. Trunk or Treat volunteer signups are gonna be starting September 2nd to give you plenty of time to plan ahead.
We have seen so many new faces become family here at Active, simply because this is a great event. So help us make Trunk or Treat an impactful time by signing up to serve.
For more information, go to our Guest Central after service and get signed up to a car host, to greet, to lead, and more for our Trunk or Treat event.
Next, connection groups will be starting soon, and there is no better time to sign up. Today is our group's kickoff barbecue and your chance to get plugged in with these amazing groups.
So make sure you stick around today after service and get signed up, because connection groups are the best way to grow deeper in your faith and relationship with others. Don't miss out on the chance to experience something amazing by signing up today for a connection group here at Active Church.
Lastly, In 2 weeks, on September 5th, we will be having an all-church worship night where both of our locations will come together at our Redlands campus to worship and pray and celebrate all that God is doing through our church. Here's Pastor James to tell you more.
Church, it's Pastor James here. I am so excited to invite you to our worship night happening on September 5th at 6:30 p.m. You know, we've been singing this song together called Won't Stop Now, and it's really a song that's about God's promises and His possibilities. And we've been singing it at both of our campuses, and it's gonna be the theme song for this worship night when we come together as two locations, really kind of for the first time to do this worship night together at our Redlands location. We're gonna sing, we're gonna pray, we're gonna take communion together. There's gonna be creative elements, there's gonna be things to just draw us in, and we don't get to pause often enough and really reflect on all that God's done and all that He is doing. So join us this night, September 5th. It's a Wednesday night. Be with us at our Redlands location as we all come together, celebrate what God's doing, look towards the future of our launch that next Sunday. It's gonna be exciting. You are not gonna wanna miss it. Join us. I can't wait to worship with you there.
This morning, we want to continue in a spirit of worship and reverence by taking communion together.
Right now, our leaders are coming forward, and you will receive a communion stack with a cracker and a cup of juice.
If this is your first time in a setting like this, please don't feel pressure to take communion this morning.
If you're a believer in Jesus, this is a time to remember that the sacrifice that took place on the cross and the forgiveness that comes from a life surrendered to God.
We look back to remember, we look inward to reflect on ourselves, and we look forward to the new life that we have in Christ. Feel free to participate by taking communion as soon as you receive the cracker and the juice.
When you are finished, you can find a cup holder near the bottom of the seat in front of you to place your empty cup.
Thanks for being with us today. Our service will continue in just a moment.
Hi, my name is Joshua. I'm the Progress Together pastor here at Active. Right now in the room, we are doing communion. It's a way that we remember what Jesus did for us. We wanted to take a moment to tell you about what happens at Active throughout the rest of the week. Tuesday night at 7 p.m. is our Active Youth program. Students from 6th grade to 12th grade experience community, life change, and a relevant worship service. Also, we believe that you're worth knowing. The best way to do this is to join our connection groups. They happen at homes in Yucaipa and some of the surrounding cities, and run for about an hour in groups of 6 to 10 people. We connect together through food, conversation, and reflecting. We hope to see you there.
Well, good morning, Active Church. How are we doing this morning? It is so great to see you. Thank you for coming and experiencing the room with us here at our Yucaipa location. And for those that are with us at our Redlands location, we're so glad that you are here with us today for week 4 of a series we're calling Tell Me Something Good. And at both locations today, as you walked in, hopefully you smelled the barbecue and you saw the corn on the cob. And even if you're a vegan, your stomach started to rumble a little bit because all God's people eat meat. That's in the Bible somewhere, right? But we're so glad that you're here today. And before we dive in, I just want to tell you something good. Specifically, I want to talk to our friends at Redlands. They are just 2 weeks away from launching our Redlands location. How fantastic is that? One of the things, Redlands, that we are so excited about is that you are with us and that you get to be a part of what God is doing here at Active Church. And many of you who are at our Yucaipa location, you know that in our kids area, we've been exploding. We've had over 200 kids that come each and every weekend, and our children's pastors have had to get really creative as to where to put kids. And so we've tied them to the roof, and I'm just kidding, we haven't done any of that. But we have an environment where our active kids go, where it's safe and it's fun and it's engaging, and we've seen that just explode over the last couple of years. And one of the solutions that we've come up with in order to alleviate some of the, I'm gonna say, chaos of kids coming is to launch this Redlands location. It's one of the major reasons why we've launched this location. And what we begin to discover is that God is bringing people to Redlands. So just 6 weeks ago, we started preview services. In fact, today is the 6th preview service for Active Church Redlands. And we are so blown away at what God has been doing in our kids' ministry. Redlands, when you first started, we had 3 kids come in July to our first preview service. Now, I want you to know, we're excited when 3 people show up. We're surprised and excited when 1 person shows up, right? We just love when people show up, and it's great to see how God is telling a better story. But then when that starts to grow exponentially, it becomes really exciting for us. And so our first preview Sunday, Redlands, we had 3 kids. And just last week, they're in their 6th Sunday. This was Sunday number 5. Just last week, they had 22 kids show up. How about that? And so we're already looking for a new building. No, I'm kidding. But we are so thrilled with what God is doing here at our Yucaipa location and with you in Redlands. Redlands, we are so glad that you are a part of this, and we are praying for you. I'm going to be with you on September 9th for the launch, and we're so excited for the better story that God is telling in and through Active Church. That's good. It's something that's good that we can talk about and celebrate. This is week 4 of a series we're calling Tell Me Something Good. And if you don't have Shaka Khan stuck in your head singing that song yet, we still have 1 more week to get it tattooed across your forehead, so you're welcome. But this week, we're focusing in on what is good. Because life can be difficult, can't it? This morning, I opened up Facebook and was reminded that life can be difficult. I was reminded that life can be hard. There is a local church called Inland Hills Church whose pastor tried to take his own life. And so now they're this morning gathering as a church, trying to navigate that. Pain and difficulty does not stay away from certain people. It affects everybody, doesn't it? And we see that stuff and it becomes overwhelming. I know for me it can become overwhelming, and maybe for you it can become overwhelming. So the question is, what do we do? And we know that we're the church, we're God's people. Even if you are new to this, even if you're intrigued by this, even if you're interested in this, there's something in your heart that's saying, I want to be a part of bringing hope to the world. And that's why we had this conversation and are having this conversation of tell me something good, that we don't ignore those things that are happening around us, but that we are a church that decides that we're going to rise above. We're a church that decides that we're going to be hope providers and not be overwhelmed by this stuff. It was Paul that encouraged the church to focus in on what is good. And he writes this in a letter called Philippians. Whatever is true and noble and right, pure, lovely and admirable, excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And so week 1, we talked about how it's good to spend time with God and how that time with God influences what we talked about in week 2, that it's good to be good. And because it's good to be good, we talked last week that it's good to give your life away. And then this week, our focus is that it's good to be connected. We are more connected than we've ever been, aren't we? I mean, right now, we are with our Redlands location. You are in Redlands and you are watching this and you are worshiping with us and you are part of Active Church and we love you, and technology has allowed us to connect with you. Technology has allowed us to be connected to people. We can reach across the globe now, can't we? You may not ever meet somebody halfway across the earth, but you can FaceTime them. You can Skype them in, can't you? But isn't it also true that even though we're so connected, we're also so disconnected? In fact, the more connected that we've become, the more isolated we've become. You could have 500 followers on Twitter and not be known by anybody. You could have the max amount of friends on Facebook and nobody would know your middle name. Isn't it true that we are so connected and yet we're so disconnected, so isolated? And our tendency is to blame technology. And what doesn't help is that there are executives who have left Silicon Valley and they have said that technology has this adverse effect on you. It affects your brain, it affects your focus, it affects your relationships. And so what we do is we blame technology, don't we? But what if technology isn't good or bad? What if technology doesn't have a value like we put on other things? Like we don't do that to paper. You remember paper, don't you? Paper was before technology. We don't do that to paper. We don't call paper good or bad. With paper, we can write a love note. And with paper, we can threaten someone's life. With paper, we can write the Constitution. And with paper, we can issue a declaration of war. With paper, we can fly paper airplanes. I'm really good at that. And with paper, we can start a fire. So if paper isn't good or bad, then why would we blame technology as it being good or bad? We see what it's doing to us, and maybe perhaps technology is just amplifying what's already in us. If you're narcissistic, egotistical, selfish, technology, maybe through social media, is the megaphone of our heart, where we post something not for everybody to see, but for that one person to see, don't we? We post that article that we saw the title, but we didn't actually read the article. We just posted it because we saw that it would be an argument to what our friend posted or our family member posted. It's not for everybody, it's just for this one person. And we end up just kind of throwing things back and forth at each other. And what it reveals in us is that there is some ego, there is some selfishness, there is this desire to be right. What technology reveals is that we have a tendency to disconnect relationally, don't we? That's what it reveals in us. And perhaps that's why we don't like it or why we want to say that it's bad. Because we have this tendency to disconnect from one another. And when we disconnect from one another, you know what we lose? We lose two really great things. Genuine conversation is the first thing that we lose. The conversation that says, "How are you?" Really? Now maybe you use "hi, how are you" as your hi, as your greeting. I'm guilty of that. You see somebody and you go, "Hey, how are you?" But you keep walking. That doesn't mean you're trying to be disrespectful. I think it's just the new hello. But we've lost genuine conversation of actually finding out what's really going on in one another's lives. We've lost this ability to dialogue because we've moved to a monologue world, haven't we? We talked about social media and posting things, and we post things and we think that we're interacting with somebody else, but what we're really doing is we're just putting words up on a wall. There's no feeling and no emotion that you can read into. It's just words on the wall. But genuine conversation is the ability to find out what's really going on. That face-to-face conversation is something that we've lost, and we've blamed technology. But the reality is that perhaps that's really what's in us. We have this tendency to disconnect relationally. And because we've lost genuine conversation, we've lost genuine confession. Now, confession might be really intimidating for some of you. Maybe you have a religious background and confession was something that was forced upon you, that you had to go and do. And so when you hear the word confession, you like shake and you're triggered, right? Because it's something that you didn't really want to participate in, but you had to, and it was uncomfortable and awkward and weird. And yet, when you look at biblical confession, confession that God, through Jesus Christ, invites us into, it's actually safe and filled with grace and life-changing. It was John, who spent a lot of time with Jesus, who writes that if you confess your sin, the thing that is breaking you, that God, through Jesus Christ, is faithful and just to forgive you and me of our sin and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. Confession brings healing. And maybe because we're in a monologue world and we forgot to dialogue with each other, we've taught ourselves that we can't have genuine conversation, which then means that we can't have genuine confession. And maybe this is why we have hashtags that say, remove the stigma of like mental health. We have to prove to people that we're not nuts. We just have this mental issue. And maybe it's because we've lost genuine confession and because we've lost genuine conversation. Now we have to prove to one another that we're not nuts, that we're not crazy, that we're not completely broken. But when you have genuine confession, it allows you a space where you can go, I'm just struggling. Maybe you recognize that there's some sin in your life, some brokenness that keeps manipulating you and leading you in a direction you don't want to go. And it's your way of saying, I don't want to live like this anymore. We're in a monologue world instead of a dialogue world. We're in a world where we've lost these abilities. And then what's interesting, isn't it interesting now, nobody makes mistakes anymore. We always blame something else. It wasn't my fault, it was this circumstance or this situation, or it was this that I was taking, or it was this I couldn't see, it wasn't clear. That's what happens when you lose genuine conversation and genuine confession. We think that we're going to be judged when you lose genuine conversation and genuine confession. Doesn't mean we're going to get it perfect every single time, but those two things are so important. So perhaps the connection that we're searching for is not connection at all. Just because you have a lot of followers and fans on social media doesn't mean that everybody is invested in you. And I think we all know that. Even though we like to have a big number, I think we all understand that. But what do we do? If that's not genuine confession and genuine conversation, if that's not genuine connection, what do we do? Author and speaker Brené Brown actually defines confession in a really powerful way. She says this, I define connection as the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When they can give and receive without judgment. And when they derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. Being seen is when you are dignified. Parents, you know this, right? Especially those that have young kids that are living at home. You know this. When you're talking to them and they're not paying attention to you, what do you say? Look at me when I'm talking to you, right? I need you to see me. I need you to at least acknowledge that I'm here. And if you are a teenager or a elementary kid or junior higher at home, the best thing that you can do in those moments is this, right? Just smile and nod. And then later on, figure out what they said, all right? But we want to be seen. We want to be dignified by being seen. And then when we're heard, It means that someone has actually acknowledged that we have a purpose. They took what we said and they wore it. It actually went into their brain. And then when we're valued, they've acknowledged that we have a direction, that we are not a mistake. And I would believe in a church this size at both of our locations, there are many of us that believe that we're mistakes because of how you got here. There are many of us that believe that we were an accident. And yet God communicates to us that we are not. And when someone sees us and hears us and values us, it's acknowledging that we are not an accident, that we were created on purpose for a purpose. These are things that we should fight for. So who fights for you? Who fights for you? My guess, here in Yucaipa and with our friends in Redlands, you're struggling to come up with more than one or two names. If you have more than one or two names, that's awesome. You're an anomaly. Because when we begin to think about who fights for us, we're not really sure how to define that, right? What do you mean? Like fight with me? I can list a lot of people. My husband, my wife, my kids, right? My boss, my coworkers, my other coworker, my neighbor. Who fights for me? Maybe my spouse. Maybe my friend. Maybe my kids. And I think what we all are feeling in this moment is exactly what we all deal with. We're not sure. We want to be connected, but we're not sure who fights for us. We're not sure what that looks like. Pastor and author Carey Nieuwhof talks about those that fight for us, and he said this: if you listen most closely to the voices that will help you build the future, you'll have a better future. We want to have voices in our life that help us to take the next step, don't we? We want to have voices in our lives that help us to become what God created us to be. We want to have people that stir our hearts and help us to be the thing that we dreamed about, that we can imagine, that we want to step into that. Nobody wants to be stuck. We would love to have people around us that are positive, powerful, godly, righteous voices that lead us into a new direction. Voices that are aligned with your mission. We want people aligned with our mission, don't we? That they know where we want to go and they're going to help us get there. But we also want voices of people who are surrounded with people who are aligned with their mission. What they're doing for us, we want for them. We want them to have the same thing. And we also want people that are speaking into our lives that their trajectory is to be better. These are the things that I think all of us would say, yes, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want. But the truth is, how do we get there? How do we become a part of that? That's a great question. So we're going to pray and go home and just noodle on that. No, I'm kidding. But how do we step into that? This is why I love the Bible. Because the Bible is filled with commands and principles and steps that we can take that are actually spoken by Jesus himself, God through somebody. It's written down. It's a challenge for us. But I also love that there are moments in the Bible where there are people just like us that are dealing with things that we are dealing with. And in their story, we can learn the keys to taking next steps. And today I want to show you the key to connection. There's one thing that you can do to be connected. And it's found in the story of King David. His story is in the Old Testament in the Bible. It's the Hebrew scriptures. It's the stories before Jesus came and died and rose again. His main story is found in 2 Samuel chapter 23. If you have a Bible, I want to encourage you to turn there. If you have a phone, you can open up your phone. And of course, we'll have the verses on the screen in both here, Yucaipa, and in Redlands. But 2 Samuel chapter 23 is where this story is found. And David is king. He's the same David that fought Goliath. He's the same David that became the man after God's own heart. He wasn't perfect by any means, but he was somebody that loved God. And he wanted to be connected to God's people. And his role as a king just turned the volume up on that. And he is surrounded by what's called the mighty men. These men fight for David. These men love David. These men will do whatever is necessary so that David is connected and feeling connection. And the story that I want to take you to is a violent story. Because during this time, it was really violent. So don't get caught up in the violence. Often we can engage the Bible and we can read something and go, man, it was a really violent time. But all that the author is telling us is what's happening. He's describing it. He's not prescribing violence. He's describing violence. And so when you engage, especially in the Old Testament, especially if you're new to church, don't get caught up in what's happening around them. Just recognize that they are fighting a battle that we are fighting, that they have to rise above and we have to rise above, that they could be overwhelmed and they're choosing good, and we could be overwhelmed and we're choosing good. And this moment in the life of David is one of those moments. And so what Samuel does is he sets us up. He gives us the characters and the qualities of 3 specific men that spent the most time with David. Then he shares a story about how they're connected. And then he gives us the key to connection. I want to share just briefly the 3 characteristics that describe these mighty men. The first that Samuel describes in this letter is someone who is very, very capable. And remember, it's a violent time, it's during war, but here's what Samuel says about the first mighty man. He said, he raised a spear against 800 men whom he killed in one encounter. Now there's some of us that are like privately wanting to go, oh, right? That's my boy. But you see that there's death, and so you don't want to like celebrate that publicly, but you'll bump somebody next to you and go, I'd love to have him on my team, right? This is somebody who's very capable to fight for David. The next guy is incredibly confident because listen to what happens in his story. The men of Israel were retreating in a battle, and this guy stood his ground till his hand grew tired and froze to the sword. It's the modern day version of playing Fortnite, and you can't put the controller down, right? He is fighting for his king. He is confident that they're gonna win and that his king is gonna win. They're capable and they're confident, but this is one of my favorite passages in all the scripture. The very next one, it's about the courage that these mighty men have. And maybe you're new to church, but I just need you to know, in church, there are gonna be moments where you come across Christians who are gonna ask, what's your favorite verse? And typically what you'll find is that people will respond with, oh, I love the verse where Jesus says that we should forgive. Oh, I love the verse where Jesus says that we should turn the other cheek. Oh, I love the verse where Jesus says that we pray for those who persecute you. I just want to encourage you at both locations, here in Yucaipa, with you in Redlands, I want to encourage you, this should be the verse that you memorize because the response that you'll get from the other person will be fantastic, all right? This is a fantastic verse. The third mighty man, here's what he says. He went down into a pit on a snowy day and killed a lion. Like, wouldn't that just be a fantastic verse to memorize? Hey, what's your favorite verse? My verse is when one of the mighty men went down into a pit and killed a lion on a snowy day. And the response will be something like that. Everybody will go, oh, nice to meet you. I'm going to a different church, right? But there is a sense when you read that where you just go, I want a friend like that. Maybe not necessarily who's going to upset PETA, but I want a friend that's gonna fight for me and is gonna be capable and confident and courageous. And then Samuel takes us to a moment where connection is happening. And he tells us this magnificent story, true story of this battle that's taking place. And he begins this way. During harvest time, 3 of the 30 chief men, the 3 that we just described, they came down to David at the cave, and while a band of Philistines was encamped in the valley. So they're in the middle of this war, and David is the king, and he is strategically placed so that he can strategically lead. And they hear about this, and they go and meet David. And then the very next verse, Samuel writes, "At this time, David was in a stronghold, and the Philistine garrison was in Bethlehem." The Philistines are the enemy of the Israelites, and you'll hear their name often in the Old Testament. It was just a battle constantly between these two nations. The Israelites could be called the Jews, and the Philistines could be called the Arabs. It's a good thing they get along today, right? This has been going on for generations. But there's something that's interesting in this last passage. They're in Bethlehem. David's fighting for his kingdom, but Bethlehem is his hometown. Bethlehem is where he was born and raised. So he's protecting his people. But now they've moved into my city. Now we got to do something. And so David is strategically planning for this. And then it's just like, maybe he's just thinking out loud, or maybe he's in the midst of battle, and maybe you can feel this and relate to this as well. Aren't there moments in the midst of battle, in the midst of chaos, in the midst of bad things that are happening, where you long for it to be better? Maybe personally you long for it to be better. Maybe outside of you long for it to be better. This is a moment where David just kind of thinking out loud, let out a sigh and says something, and Samuel records it this way. David longed for water and said, "Oh, that someone would get me a drink of water from the well near the gate of Bethlehem." Man, I would love to have that water, because me and my brothers, when I was 5, we went down there and we'd pull water from that and we'd drink it and we'd splash each other. There's great memories there. That's when I met my first girlfriend. That's when we had graduation. That's where this thing took place. That's where I remember we had the parade. That's where we celebrated Christmas. That's where we marched on that one day when we were really heartbroken. We went there and surrounded it and we sang and we prayed. That's the place. Oh, I would love to have a drink from that well. That's my favorite place to go. And the mighty men hear this. The 3 mighty men hear this. And this is their response. In the very next verse. Go ahead and throw that up. So the 3 mighty men broke through the Philistine lines. They drew water from the well, and they carried it back to David. David should never complain that he is not experiencing connection. In the midst of the battle, these 3 men get him a drink of water from the well in Bethlehem. He was seen, he was heard, and he was valued. And then Samuel says, okay, and now for the key. Now for the thing that helped connection take place. Are you ready? Samuel records this. But he, David, refused to drink it. Instead, he poured it out before the Lord. What? So let me get this straight. Connection begins by being an ungrateful jerk. Is that what connection means? These guys fought and brought water to David, and he grabs it and he pours it out. I don't know about you, I would be mad. Maybe you've bought a gift for someone that you love, and this gift was like gold, and they received it like it was tube socks or nail clippers. And you were wanting them to jump up and down, and you were picturing this moment, weren't you, right? You were picturing this moment, right? Tears running down their faces, and what you got was, oh, tube socks. Thanks. This This is that moment. And yet, the mighty men don't get mad at David. The mighty men don't yell at David. They don't even say a word, which means that maybe there's something else going on here. This act of David is a missional act. This act of David is a part of who he's becoming. And it was something that he learned from one of the first faith fathers, a man named Jacob. Jacob, who is responsible for the nation of Israel. In fact, that was the name that God gave him. The nation of Israel came from his family. Jacob is so well known that when they introduced God to people, talked about the God that they worshiped, they would say that I worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob is so interspersed, so connected, a part of the DNA of the people of God. David is modeling something that he learned from Jacob. There was a moment in the life of Jacob early on where he makes a commitment to God. And he says before God, if you are the God that you say that you are, I will give my life to you. And I will ask that you will heal the things that I've broken, that you will restore the things that have been torn away, and that you will reconcile relationships that I have destroyed. God, this is who I want to be, and I need you to help me be that. Jacob recognized that God moved first on his behalf, and Jacob responded to that by saying, God, I want to give my life to you. And close to the end of his life, all of these things had been healed, all of this reconciliation had taken place, and in the very same spot where he made the commitment to God, he takes water and he pours it out as a way of saying, God, I want to live on mission, and I want to do in the lives of others what you are doing in my life. This is the type of person that I want to be. The mission of Jacob is to love God by loving people. The mission of David is to love God by loving people. That moment is a moment of sacrifice. It's a moment of acknowledging that God, I would not be here if it wasn't for you. God, I would not be loved if it wasn't for your love. I would not be forgiven if it wasn't for your forgiveness. I would not have hope if it wasn't for your hope. I would not be able to rise above and focus on the good if it wasn't for you, God, moving on my behalf first. And this is what David is doing in that moment when they bring him the water and he refuses to drink it and pours it out. And here's what he said in that moment to the mighty men. He said, the Lord forbid that I should drink this. This water is as precious as the blood of these men who risked their lives to bring it to me. And David refused to drink it. Because what he is announcing here is, my life is not better than yours. My life is not more valuable than yours. And you know who taught me that? God did. And God forbid me from living in a way where I am somebody that doesn't move first, that doesn't love first, that doesn't give first. Listen, the mighty men fought for David because David fought for them first. And because we long for connection, you know what we wait for? We wait for them to move first. We have our imaginary clipboards, don't we? And we evaluate one another. Will they see me? Check. Will they hear me? Check. Will they value me? Check. I'm waiting for them to invite me. I'm waiting for them to mentor me. I'm waiting for them to love me. I'm waiting and 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 I'm waiting. And the reason why we don't have connection is because we spend so much time waiting and evaluating. Connection is found in your decision to draw close to people. Not in your evaluation of people and whether or not they can draw close to you. This is the reason why we're not connected, and this is the reason why we lack connection, and this is the reason why genuine conversation and genuine confession do not happen, is because we've been waiting and we wait and we wait and we wait. And the key to connection is not waiting. The key to connection is to be for another what you want from another. You want to be inspired? Inspire. You want to be motivated? Motivate. You want to be loved? Love. Be for another what you want from another. Be for another what you want from another. The key to connection starts with your decision to draw close to people. I'm a big Bob Goff fan. I had two friends that I went to lunch with this week that said, we're big Bob Goff fans too. And we got to talk about all of the things that God has used and told us through Bob and his books. And this is something that I read recently from Bob that I thought was really powerful. If I really want to meet Jesus, then I have to get a lot closer to the people he created, all of them, not just some of them. And what we've created at Active Church is a pillar that says that we progress together, that this is a great front door, that life shoulder to shoulder here in Yucaipa, here in Redlands, that life is great when we can do it shoulder to shoulder, but it's better when we can do it face to face. The conversation starts in here and the conversation continues outside of these walls. This is why we do connection groups around here. Because we long for connection, we need connection, we need that in our lives because it's what helps us to be seen, heard, and valued. And we make the decision first to see and hear and value the person that's sitting across from us, that we are face to face with. And so very simply, very clearly, find a group and you'll find connection. Find a group and you'll find connection because it's good to be connected. Because connection keeps you on mission. It's good to be connected because connection keeps you on mission. It's good to be for another what you want from another. And that's really it. I don't think that there's anything else that I need to tell you. But before we finish, let me just make sure that I covered everything, all right? We talked about technology, talked about connection, we talked about the lion in a pit on a snowy day, that was your favorite. We talked about David, we talked about the mighty men, we talked about how we are to be for another what you want from another. I don't think that there's anything else that we need to talk about. One more thing. So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? You could do one of two things. I think there's two options here, right? There's option A. You could do nothing, which is what a lot of us do. A lot of us choose to do nothing. And when you do nothing, nothing changes. When you do nothing, you don't transform. When you do nothing, you don't grow. And maybe you like convenience. You were never created to live in convenience. Maybe you like comfortable. You were never created to live comfortably. And I'll bet that the answers that you have to not doing anything, to doing nothing, they all start with I. I'm too busy. You know what that really says? Is I just don't want to prioritize connection. I'm going to talk about how I want connection, but I'm not going to prioritize it. When we say that we're too busy, what we're saying is it's just not a priority for me. So let's have genuine conversation and genuine confession in this place this morning. And let's just be honest about where we're at. We're just not going to prioritize it. Maybe you would say that I'm too nervous. You know what's on the other side of nervous? Courage. When you're able to step into a courageous relationship with somebody else. You're nervous because maybe your heart's been broken, trust has been broken. I understand that, I get that, and that doesn't give you an excuse to stay and do nothing. Or maybe you'll respond with, I'm too spiritual. Now, let me just explain that for a moment. I've been a Christian for 30 years. And in that time, I've been really confused about something. This is a phrase that gets thrown out a lot. And what people are saying is this, like, I just need to go deeper. I just need to get deep. And these things that are offered, they're just not deep enough for me. And in the 30 years that I've been a follower of Jesus, do you know that nobody has been able to explain to me what deeper means? That usually their definition of deeper is very ambiguous, which means it just kind of floats everywhere, or it's really confusing. Listen very closely. You don't need deeper. You need clarity. Because clarity helps you take the next step. For those of you that have been a part of the church for a while and you use phrases like, I'm getting fed, I need to get fed, I'm getting deeper, I'm spiritual, stop. Because it's a lie. What you need is clarity. What do you do next? Do the next right thing. That's deep. When somebody who knows one Bible verse maybe has it tattooed on their arm and it says to love people, and they love people, that's deep. You need clarity. And maybe this is why you should do something. And I'll bet you your answers for something all start with I. I'm ready. I needed this. I want connection. And so very simply, very clearly, I want to give you a direction. Find a group. Find connection. Find a group. Find connection. What if 100% of us decided to do this? What if 100% of us decided to jump into a group? Can you imagine what your family would be like? Can you imagine what your friend circle would be like? Can you imagine what our city, what your business, what our church would look like if we all decided that relationships were important? That we're going to draw close to people because we want to draw close to God? That we're going to have people in our lives that we are going to be for them what we would want from another? We want that, so we're going to choose to do that. Can you imagine what would happen if we decided we were going to be courageous? We weren't expecting you to be courageous. We were just going to decide to be courageous. Find a group. Find connection. I asked Pastor Rick Gunn, who's in charge of our connection groups here at Active Church, to just take a minute and share with us some of the options that are laid before us. And so if you would, check out the screen.
Hey guys, really glad you're here today. We are going to have some sign-ups. We're going to have a barbecue so you can apply everything Mike is talking about in his messages. You'll be able to sign up for the group of your choice, whatever is the best fit for you. And so one of the groups we have first is Alpha. Another we have is Rooted. And then we have regular connection groups. And then we have our active parenting class that's coming up. Alpha is all about people who have questions about the Christian life or God or Jesus and have no church background whatsoever. It's an easy invite because you can say to a friend, hey, if you've got questions, come Thursday nights. That's when we're going to have Alpha groups. And there's a free meal. There's a talk or a film, and then there's a discussion afterwards. And everybody likes a free meal, right? So you may not know how to share your faith, but you can invite people to Alpha. That's one group we're offering. The second group we're offering is Rooted. And Rooted is an 11-week small group series where you can learn things like, how does God speak to me? How do I overcome strongholds in my life? How do I deal with trials? There's a prayer experience, there's a serve experience that's part of Rooted. And it'll prepare you for leadership in just about any ministry in the church, including leading your own connection group after you're done with Rooted. Connection groups are another opportunity for you. Those have been going on in the church for years. These are opportunities to really get to know people, get to make new friends, encourage one another, pray for each other. They are going to deal with what Mike is covering on Sunday. And then last of all, we have active parenting, and we're offering that to encourage you parents. I mean, who doesn't need some encouragement as a parent to get ideas and to lift each other up and our kids in prayer? So some great opportunities. We hope you stick around for the barbecue after service, and you can sign up for any one of those. The leaders are out there. You can ask them questions. We have a whole catalog of information for you so that we can progress together and tell the best story possible.
Yeah. So because we need clarity, I'm going to make this really clear for you, okay? I want you to do this. I want you to eat. I want you to talk to somebody that's a leader of a connection group, and I don't care if you are eating and talking at the same time. Your mama is not here, okay? So you can eat, Talk, find somebody, join a connection group, talk to the group host. We have food at both locations. We want to feed you. We want to get fat and giggly. And then the best thing is join a group. So eat, talk, join a group. Eat, talk, join a group. It's good to be connected because connection keeps you on mission. Let me pray for us. Jesus, we know what you've placed inside of us. We know the longings and the desires that we have inside of us. And one of those is to be connected. One of those is to be in relationship, to be seen and heard and valued. But often we do it from a position of evaluation instead of a position of courage, instead of a position of stepping into connection. So God, may we be for another what we want from another. May we be for another what we want from another. May we be for another what we want from another. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
You stand, church, as we worship. Let's declare this together in faith. In the arms of the Father, there is love like no other. And He who formed all things and offers up to me. And where you go, we will follow. And through the dark, through the narrow, land you know we do. We are bound to you. Come on, sing this out. And I want to be close to you. And I want to be close to you. There's nothing in this world that compares to all you are. Let's declare this. We are found. We are found in your presence, seeking you in your fullness. Give us eyes to see that you are all, and you are all we need. Oh, I want to be close to you. And I want to be close to you. 'Cause there's nothing in this world that compares to all you are. Oh, and I want to be close. Come on, declare it. To you. My sole devotion, my only focus, to worship you. And my life surrenders, sing it out. Oh, my sole devotion, sing it. To worship you, Lord. And my life, my heart abandoned for more of you. Make this your prayer. And I want to be close my heart abandoned for more of you. We surrender, Lord, and my soul devotion to worship you. Give you our lives, Lord. And my life surrender, my heart abandoned for more of you.
Yeah. If you would, have a seat for just a minute. I would love for us to be people that don't just talk about it, but take action. So often we want to be connected and we long for that, but we never take a step towards it. Even in moments like this, we long to be radically generous people. And these are moments where we get to practice that. If you want to be radically generous, take a step towards radical generosity. Be somebody that says, God, you have all of me. You have every part of me, heart, soul, mind, strength. God, you have my resources. You've provided for me, and so may I be a person that creates a space for somebody else. And so I want to invite you in this moment to give back, to create a space for somebody because you had a space created for you. All the resources that we collect go towards ministry. They go towards opportunity. They go towards us being a church that wants to reach 1% of the 1.7 million people within a 30-mile radius of our church. We want to have them meet Jesus and learn to follow Jesus. That we want this kingdom to grow over any other kingdom. I mean, we're fans of Disneyland, right? And we give our money to that kingdom. But I'm a follower of Jesus. And I want to give my money, my resource, my heart, my soul to his kingdom. Because Disneyland is a place, but the kingdom of God is people. And so today as you give back, recognize that you are giving to somebody that you may know. You are giving for somebody that you may not know. But you are giving back because the God that you know, the God that you want to know, the God that you long for has invited you to step into a new reality, and that reality is one that you trust him. You are loved by him, and your heart and your hands are open to him. And so may we be a people that would give back. There's 4 ways that we give in this place. We'll have some buckets that will pass, and there's envelopes in the front of the seat back for you if you have cash or a check. You can give online at activechurches.com/give. We have a giving kiosk in the lobby, and we also have text to give. You text give to the number on the screen, and it sets up an account for you. And then from this day forward, all you need to do is just text the amount and hit send, and everything's taken care of. Church, thanks for being so faithful. We're launching a second location in 2 weeks because you gave and continue to give. We have food today and an opportunity for people to eat, talk, and join a connection group because you gave. We are able to be the church that we are today because you gave. And so wherever you're at, how much you give, all of that is between you and God. We just invite that 100% of us would say yes to God, whatever it is that you can give. Say yes to God in this moment and practice generosity. Let me pray for us. God, would you use these gifts that we're giving? And would you use them for great and mighty things? And would you stir our hearts and change our hearts and open up our minds to what's next through this moment of generosity? That we would not be tied to things, we would be tied to you. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Leaders, if you pass those buckets. Church, we believe that you are worth knowing. You're worth knowing. So all of the excuses that you're collecting in your mind to not go and eat and sign up for a connection group, eliminate those. There's somebody that needs your story. So be for them what you would want from another. And go and get fat and giggly this morning, all right? All the food has no calories. We prayed over it. None of that is biblical, by the way. I'm lying to you, but I just want you to go and eat. That's what I want. We're so glad that you came today. God bless you guys, and go and have a great time. Have a great barbecue. We'll see you next week.